Good day everyone, I am Michael, moderator for this webinar. I welcome everyone for today's webinar, which is Credentialing 101, a detailed guide to provider credentialing. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our presenter for today, Kathy Harris. Kathy Harris, CBCS, is a nationally certified credentialing, billing and coding specialist with over 20 years of experience in the healthcare industry. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Kathy.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for everyone attending the class today. I hope that you'll glean some new information and be able to help improve your credentialing process and even be able to learn the credentialing process. Just a little bit about me. As he had said, I have over 20 years experience in medical billing, coding, and provider credentialing and contracting. Some of the learning objectives for today: when to start credentialing, set up and maintenance of MPPS or your MPI, INA management system, CAQH, and PCOS. How to review, validate, and track provider documents, how to prepare, review, submit, and track payer applications, items to complete once the provider is credentialed and contracted, linking of previously credentialed providers with payers to your tax ID and contracts, and a brief overview of provider revalidations. The credentialing keys to success can be broken down into 4 ways: research, preparation, tracking, and communication. How do I start the process of credentialing a provider? The very first thing is research. Research is the key to successful provider credentialing. These are questions that you need to have answers to. This is the vital information you need to proceed with provider's credentialing. Now we got to move on to the payer research. For the payer research, one of the first things you want to know is what are the payer application and documentation requirements. Reviewing for the provider welcome package documents. You need your provider enrollment information document. You need your provider document checklist. You need your provider CV requirements, your welcome letter, and your description of services. For the payer research side of things and documents, you need your payer state applications, you need your payer or state applications, your payer contact information, and also a tracking spreadsheet. This is an example of the cheat sheet that I've created for you for each payer contact information. The next part of the credentialing process is the preparation. Preparation can be organized into 2 sections: your provider document preparation and your payer document preparation. Number 1, you need to review all documents for accuracy, dates, and infractions. Next, you want to review the provider's CV. So now let's get into MPPES or the MPI, CAQH, Identity and Access Management, and PCOS, the web link for MPPS. So moving on to the Identity and Access Management System, moving on into CAQH, this is the link to go to CAQH. Next is PCOS. This is the system that you use to credential for Medicare. This right here is a sample of the provider verification form. So that sums up the provider documentation preparation. Now let's look into the payer document preparation. So for application preparation, it's vital to complete the payer application with current and accurate information. So let's talk about payer application submissions via email or fax. Sample copy of the cover letter and the fax cover. So application submissions via payer website. So let's go over of linking a provider or mid-level to your group. So if the provider is already credentialed, contracted with the payer as a participating or referred to as PAR provider, this right here is a copy of the link letter and the fax transmission. Payers require re-credentialing or revalidation once the provider is credentialed. Tracking is the single action that can ensure timely, efficient submission and processing of the provider's payer application package. Tracking is divided in 2 parts: document tracking and application tracking. 2 of the document tracking tools are the provider document checklist and the Excel tracking spreadsheet. And here is an example of those checklists that I was mentioning for the top of the left side and top of the right side. For application tracking, I find the best thing is an Excel tracking spreadsheet and a calendar or planner. Most importantly, communication. The biggest thing you want to do is minimize the impact to the provider and facility. Some of those steps to minimize financial impact. So once the provider's credentialing is approved, what do you do next? So once you've requested the payer approval information, you'll need to store a physical and digital copy. Forms. So like I stated before, included with this webinar are several forms mentioned throughout the presentation. So that finishes us up for the thing. Thank you for coming, and look forward to future webinars.
Thank you, Kathy. So that does conclude the session for today. Thank you everyone for participating. Hope you have enjoyed the session. You may all disconnect now. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.
Good day everyone. I'm David, moderator for this webinar. And I welcome everyone for today's webinar, which is provider credentialing, maintaining provider enrollments, updates, and revalidations. I would now like to introduce our presenter for today, Katie Harris. Katie Harris, CBCS, is a nationally certified credentialing, billing, and coding specialist. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Katie.
Thank you, David. I appreciate the introduction, and good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to attend this webinar. I hope that it will provide you with all of new knowledge and different techniques, as well as a little more in-depth understanding and a good start and foundation to your credentialing program and maintenance of all of the important documents that each provider has. So as David had said, my name is Katie Harris. I'm the Director of Provider Credentialing and Contracting for Solor Inc. Some of the learning objectives today will be, when do you start credentialing? What is needed to maintain the provider enrollment with payers? How do you set up and maintain the NPPES, the INA management system, CAQH, and PCOS? How do you review and validate and track provider documents? How do you prepare, review, submit, and track payer applications? How do you link a previously credentialed provider with a new payer under your tax ID and contracts, revalidations, and various credentialing tips? So for the credentialing keys to success, it's broken down into 4 areas: research, preparation, tracking, and communication. Research is divided into two parts. First and foremost is the provider research. The next part of the research part of the provider research is your provider welcome packet. The next part of research is obtain any of the logins that they have. Here right now that you're seeing on your screen is an example of the provider enrollment form. This here is an example of a welcome letter. This right here is an example of the CAQH attestation form. And then they'll obviously be asking for the individual MPI, which that is a type 1 MPI. So an individual MPI is a type 1 MPI, which is the provider's individual MPI. So you'll need to be able to put that in there. Under the next section you come to is the professional identification numbers. That's going to be your medical license, your DEA license, so on and so forth. The next most important thing is their specialty. What is their primary specialty? What is the board that certified them? The next thing that you have is the office manager and business staff contacts. Sometimes it's the same person, sometimes it's not. So when you log in, this comes to the main page tab, and you'll have the provider here. And then you select the provider you're wanting to work with. And so that very first tab, the provider profile, this is what it looks like. The next area is your endpoint for exchanging healthcare information. If you are involved in an endpoint software program, this is where you would put that. This is where you can list any kind of identifiers like your Medicare number, your Medicaid number, or so on and so forth. The other thing is the taxonomy. The next section is contact information. And lastly, NPPES does an error check for you. And after you've submitted it, it will pop up a confirmation page for you to print. So now we're moving on to the payer research. The payer application and document requirements. So just to review, for the provider welcome package documents, you've got the provider enrollment information document, the provider document checklist, the provider CV requirements, and the welcome letter. You also have your description of services. For the payer side of research, the next step of it, so you've done your research, your provider research and your payer research, is the preparation of everything. Preparation can be organized into 2 sections, the provider document preparation and the payer. The provider document preparation. So this is extremely, extremely important. So getting back into the NPPES, CAQH, INA, and PCOS, there's all these facts on the side here and glossary. The glossary is amazing. So you would click on create your initial enrollment application and it would take you to another section. Now, if you have an existing enrollment and you're needing to, say, add a new location or you need to add a new reassignment, next is the payer document preparation. So linking of a provider mid-level. This is going to take place if the provider is already credentialed or contracted with a payer as a participating provider. You'll need to complete a link to your tax ID and group contract. Something to remember about provider revalidations. All payers require recredentialing or revalidation once the provider is credentialing. Tracking is a single action that can ensure timely, efficient submission and processing of the provider's paying application package. And the biggest thing is to try to minimize the impact to your practice provider that credentialing can have on it, the financial impact. Some of the steps that you can do. So once the provider is credentialed and approved, what is next? Thank you again for everybody taking the time out of your day and joining us. And like I said, I hope that you were able to gain some more information and help to really build a strong platform for your credentialing and maintaining revalidations and have you. The biggest thing is make sure that you pay attention, follow up, stay on track, if you follow the tips and tricks that I gave you, you should have a very successful program. And if not, you're welcome to reach out to me. Thank you again. I appreciate your attendance. It has been great to have this time with you guys, and I wish you each well, and I hope that you have a safe, healthy, and happy 4th of July, if that's what you celebrate.
Okay, thank you so much, Katie. Okay, so that does conclude the sessions for today. Thank you everyone for participating. You may all disconnect now. Have a great day ahead.